Hello and welcome to 110 Yards. I'm Coach Aaron Page, a Canadian coaching American football in Denmark. Today with me, I have Anton Bodilsen. He's an NFL expert with TV3 Sports in Denmark and the head coach of the Kronborg Knights. So how are you doing today, Anton?
I'm doing fine. Looking forward for us to start the season, hopefully pretty soon. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be on your podcast.
Yeah, man. Dude, I hear you on starting the season because we had just got the good news about, for those of you that don't know, we've been locked down in Denmark here, gathering limited to 5, and for outdoor sports just got extended to 25. So what was your reaction when that happened on the press conference the other day?
I was really excited, and I was actually surprised. Unfortunately, it caught us a little bit off guard because I was, I'm not a doctor, but I thought it would last just a little bit longer. So we had just started doing like meetings. We didn't want to start off too soon because I was afraid that players would get tired of it if we ended up being on Zoom meetings for 3 months. So we actually we could have started a few weeks earlier, really. So, but I'm excited. I can understand for all the players that they're really excited to get out there.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see a boost in attendance for sure. Like then, because normally it's sometimes an issue I find in Europe, but yeah, we were doing the online Zoom thing. I was just gonna ask you that too. Like, what were you doing in the meantime? But yeah, we've beat that to death. The guys are looking to get out on the field.
Yeah, yeah.
It's tough to come up with the online stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it is because a lot of guys, well, at least in my experience, you can talk so much playbook with them, but at some point they have to actually get it into their system. They actually have to run the route. They actually have to see whatever it is that we want them to read on defense or whatever. They actually have to do it, and I find it difficult to roll out 5 or 6 plays on a Zoom meeting without ever running just one of them live. In the perfect world, you want to go over it on the board and then go out and run it on grass right after. But unfortunately, that really haven't been able. We haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, and I mean that was the chief complaint with our guys is all these talks were great if you could go out and execute right after, but and a lot of guys don't learn on the board; they learn by doing. So yeah, I mean, you got to make the most of it, but yeah, you can start to get a little too crazy with the ideas. The good idea fairy comes, and you have, oh, what about this play? And then you're just piling on more. And as a coach, I don't know how many nights I'm laying in bed and I'm just like, oh, let me write this down or let me draw it up, and then they never end up making it in because it's just,
No, and I also remember that from playing myself, I never had any trouble understanding the schemes. I always thought that just running through plays on air was just a complete waste of time when I was a player. And then when I first became a coach, I was like, I'm never going to do that. That's a waste of time. And then suddenly I saw that people didn't know what they were doing when we just went over it in the playbook and then later just ran full speed against our own defense or whatever. And I finally realized, maybe there is some value to just running through plays, just stand out there, make sure everybody walks in the right direction. And as a player, I never got anything out of it, but apparently a lot of other guys get a ton out of it.
Yeah. It's always weird because as a former player myself, you knew what worked best for you. And then you realize you have to cater to all the learning types and archetypes of people. And so that's like a journey of its own. What got you into coaching? Is this your first stint coaching or, bring me down that road?
I started playing when I was I'm 41 now. I started playing when I was 14 or 15. And when I became a senior, Lars Carlsen, who is the head of DAF now, was our head coach at the time. And when he left to become the head coach of the national team, we got a coach from the States. And I don't know if you've been in Europe for a while, you know that the coaches that come over here, it's pretty much a gamble. You usually get a guy that is done playing. Maybe he's got a little bit of coaching experience. But when you come to Europe, you really, in most cases, have to be the general manager, the head coach, and the position coach. And not a whole lot of guys know all the positions. A lot of guys maybe know one position, and most of them have maybe tried to be a coordinator. But we got a guy. We were really, really lucky with a guy named Roger Velliket, who had played at Michigan State and had coached at a very high school level in Michigan, and he was really the perfect guy to come to Europe. He had a basic understanding of all the positions. He was a great culture builder, and I guess he saw something in me. He started first. He made me a position coach on the senior team. I was like a playing position coach, and at one point he asked me if I wanted to help out on the junior program. And at this time I'm maybe 21, and time in Denmark back in 2000, there wasn't a whole lot of coaches. There was a lot of guys who were just making stuff up as they went. But the national team had very, very few coaches to pick from. And Roger was already a part of the national team coaching staff. So he asked if I wanted to come along. So I got to learn from a lot of the Americans that came to Denmark, because they were usually a part of that coaching staff. And I learned from Roger and from Lars Carlsen. And really, at a time when there wasn't a whole lot of guys that knew what they were doing, I got to be around all the guys that knew the most about the sport. So that was really my way into it. And then I coached on the national team on and off for the last 19 years, 20 years almost. I know the last game I coached with the national team was my 49th 49th game with the national team. So that was pretty exciting. And then I became the head coach of the Kronborg Knights when he left for a short while. Then I started having kids and was a little bit out of club coaching, only with the national team, and then came back here last year as the head coach of the Kronborg Knights. So I had a long period, like 10 years, where I was only coaching with the national team, which was a little bit easier for me. When you have kids, it can sometimes, well, at least for me, it was difficult to take out so many days during the week. It was easier to know, okay, it's these 2 or 3 weeks a year that I'm gone. And then I had 2 or 3 years with the Copenhagen Towers. I was just a position coach in there. I coached defensive line when they won their first championship. What was that, in 2014? So that was kind of how I ended up here. I always knew that I wanted to get back to Kronborg, which is the team that I play with when I was a kid, and also my senior career. So I always wanted to get back to coach with Kronborg Knights. It's a team that just meant a ton to me, really to my upbringing, and the kind of man I became. It really meant a lot to me. The guys out here, the coaches that had a lot of influence on me and how I view different things in life. So I really wanted to give back something back to the club. So when I knew that I had the time again and my family was cool with me investing so much time in it, it seemed like a easy choice for me to go back to coaching here.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree with a lot of what you said about, actually all of it, about when the guys come over and sort of they get that shell shock. I know what happened to me the first time I came over to Germany.
I imagine.
Yeah, and so when I went back, I did a ton of clinics to learn everything. And I think it's great that you went back to your sort of home club. I can relate because I went back and coached at the high school that I used to play at. Okay. And that feeling, it's a different feeling going home and going somewhere that taught you about the man you are today. Does it feel good now, having coached with the national team for as long as you did, to see sort of the funneling of the American and guys out of that, and more Danish guys gathering more knowledge, and basically homegrown coaches helping out at the national level and throughout the clubs in Denmark?
It's funny when you see coaches around the league today, a lot of those guys is guys that was a part of the national team, maybe as a player, and then later they come back as a coach. I think most of the staff there is right now, at least on the under 19 national team, has played there at some point. Last time I was there, Thomas Kipp from Aarhus, he used to be a player when I was a defensive line coach. He was a defensive coordinator. So there's a lot of guys that just have really been taught football, let's say, the right way, and then kind of that kind of sparked the interest for those guys. And yeah, I'm really proud of being. I'm not taking all the credit for it, but I'm proud of have been part of that evolution of football that that Denmark has gone through. And you know, it's easy to see. When I played on the national team, we would get blown out. I think we lost 70-7 to Finland. By the time I was coaching there, when I was like 5 or 6 years into coaching with the national team, we were kicking Finland's ass and was a top 4 team in Europe with the U19. So the way we have the length that a U19 team has gone in those 20 years is unbelievable. And even though I know Lars Carlsen is obviously to thank for that, and Kimi V and a lot of those guys, I'm just so proud that I've been a part of that evolution and that long journey. It went from that game in Norway where we lost, I can't remember, 72-7 or something. We got blown out.
Man, yeah, that's great. And you know, a lot of I've said a few times, like, part of my job over here is to basically work towards making my job go out of existence. Like, there's going to be a point where they don't need to bring guys over anymore. And, you know, luckily that's not today, because otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here. But
so, I think you say something really important there, because a lot of the guys that came in the beginning, when teams started to bring in over Americans, we were just paying for tackles and touchdowns. When the guys went home, they didn't leave any knowledge. They weren't like, whenever we got an American player over here, usually they would coach on the junior team or coach a position. When they went back, there wasn't a guy who could say, well, okay, I learned all the drills, I learned all the coaching points, he taught me how to run this stuff. They left, and they left with all that knowledge, and we had pretty much paid, I don't know how much they paid back then, 150,000 crowns for a guy to score 20 touchdowns. And then, you know, that's a lot of money to pay for touchdowns in an amateur sport. You should be paying for knowledge. And I think that all the teams has been way better at paying for knowledge now, understanding we have to educate the guys that are actually living here so that they can keep that knowledge within the team.
Yeah, and that's part of what I'm trying to do here with the Oaks is, you know, they've already been a such successful program already with their youth program, but just to help streamline some of that stuff, and bring in some coaches from Canada, that we've done some online clinics and things like that. So you're right. I think it's important to pass on the knowledge, so then basically work the job out of existence. But, you know, that going back a little bit, so all the coaching you've done, that's led you to a sort of a split in the career where you're, like I said, you're NFL expert with the Danish television program. How did you get into that? And, you know, how long you've been doing it, and, you know, just talk me through that a little bit.
I just stumbled over it. I didn't even want to do it. My buddy is a journalist, and I played with him when I was younger. He was actually the guy that he called me up one day. We have been watching NFL on TV3 back then, and we weren't very old. Yeah, I must have been like 14 or 15. And he called me up and he said, you know what? There's somebody playing American football at a grass field in my backyard. I was like, get out of here. So we went up there to see what these guys were doing. And there was an American quarterback who was playing with the Kronborg Knights at the time, who was having a junior practice for 5 kids. And it was like, hey, we want to be part of this. So me and him, we always stuck together and played together for a long time. And when he became a journalist, he got a job at the Eurosport to do college football. They had like a 1 game a week or something like that. And then he got the NFL job. And he asked me if I wanted to do the Eurosport job. And I was like, sure, I can do it, because you're not on screen. It's just you in a box, just commentating the game. And I was like, I'm fine with that. So I did that for 1 year. And then they had a guy quit on TV3 Sport. It's like 7 years ago now. And they asked me if I wanted to come in to a screen test. And first I was like, you know what? I really don't want to be on TV. But my fiance, she convinced me to do it, to give it a try. And she said, you can always say no. So I went in there, and it went fine. And they asked me if I wanted a job. And I was like, okay, I don't really want to pass up being able to live off my hobby. That's a little arrogant if something like that just falls in your lap. So I was like, okay, fair enough. I give it a try. And now I'm 7 years in. It was kind of weird in the beginning. you know, it's difficult. You know how technical football is, and you have to somehow explain that to people that doesn't understand the sport. And at the same time, it's a privilege to be there. It's a privilege that I get to sell the sport to the Danish people. So I was a little split in the beginning whether or not I was doing a good enough job. I really wanted to learn people all the details of the sport. On the same hand, we wanted to make sure that everybody understood what the hell we were talking about. But I'm done it for 7 years now, and I'm really happy with it. It's a lot of fun, and the guys in there are really great. And the best part about it is whenever we go to the Super Bowl, I get to talk to all these position coaches, and usually I ask them the questions that I have to ask, and then I go, oh, okay, screw this. Then I ask them some football questions that have nothing to do with our coverage.
Yeah.
So I really get some good stuff out of those trips.
I was gonna say that's like you get to kind of network a bit, and you get to bend, get the ear of some of these high level guys. Now, did you have like in the beginning, like because everyone maybe kind of like thinks that it's okay, it's just talking about what's going on in the field, but did you do any sort of trainings or clinics and stuff to get better at the color commentating? Because everyone probably thinks they could do it, but until you got the lights in your face and you're on the camera, what's that feeling like, and how do you get over that sort of hump of that?
I actually think that in some ways I'm a little bit retarded. Because I really didn't. I think in 7 years I only once thought about there might be 100,000 people watching me right now. I really don't think about it, and I think maybe that's one of my strengths. I have had very few pointers to me. There was no education. I just got thrown into it. I had one screen test, then we did one like a dummy where we run a whole program without actually airing the program. And I had a guy tell me like 2 pointers in the break, and that was it, live TV the next week. So that was kind of crazy getting thrown into. And then along those 7 years, I might have gotten like 10 or 15 pointers from our bosses, but it's been very, very few. There's really no education for them. As far as I understood, it's pretty much either you can do it or you can't. I think that being natural on screen and just kind of forgetting that a lot of people is watching is really the most important thing. And then I really think that coaching helped me out a lot. I have been on so many both clinics, coaches meetings with players where I have to explain something to guys, and there's somebody in the room who has only played for half a year, and I have to make sure that he understands what I'm talking about, and the guy that played for 10 years, he has to get something out of this meeting as well. And I really think that's been the best education as far as talking about football on TV to color commentate on these games. That's really been the best education you can get.
Yeah, that's one thing that threw me off when I first got into coaching was the amount of public speaking that you have to do. And when you think of public speaking, you think you're on a stage with 1,000 people, but sometimes it's 30 guys, and they're all. It's just as it's if not worse than being in front of 1,000 people, I think, because like you said, you're trying to explain it to the guy who's just starting out, and then 10-year vet, and keeping everyone happy. Do you ever have a moment where you're like, holy cow, I'm fooling everybody out here, and then you're like, like I hope I'm doing a good service to those people watching at home, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There are times where I'm like, am I completely going over everybody's heads with this, or are people actually catching what I'm trying to explain? Also, because a lot of times you get thrown into it on TV. It's not like when you and I have a coaches meeting, we know what we're going to talk about. This is a game, you don't know where this game is going. And sometimes I have a little thing in my ear, and my boss might tell me, hey, we got to draw on this play. You got 20 seconds. So now I have to watch on my little iPad, I have to watch this play. And 20 seconds later, I have to, in 30 seconds, explain to public what just happened in a way that they understand, and in a way where I feel like I really got to explain the not all the details of the play, but enough for the viewers to understand why was this a success. So there's a couple of times where I'm like, I really didn't paint a very good picture of this. I kind of just paint really the basic stroke of what was going on here. It was so few details that I'm not completely happy with the job I did. But it is a fine line, as you said, and it's even worse on TV. We have guys who have been watching NFL for 20 years, and we have other viewers that has just got done with commercials and just sat by accident. Oh, what is this? And we want to make sure that they keep watching as well.
For sure. Yeah, and like you can't be using the technical jargon of like, oh, we have a 3 technique, and this, like, you got to find the simplicity of it. But still, yeah, I think, and I think if if you're doing that, you're doing a great job. So when you went back to the Knights now, did you see a boom in recruitment, being the position that you and your partner have, or did the Knights get a little more interest because of that, and was it well received by you guys? How did that all work out?
I think if you asked our chairman, he would say yes. I really haven't felt it. Maybe I haven't. There hasn't been a lot of seniors just to walk in through the door. Maybe on some of the junior programs, I couldn't tell. But I don't. Obviously, the local paper has written a little bit about it. And maybe now, obviously, the first year I was here was the year that Corona hit us. So I think in the future we maybe have to do a better job of banking on it, making sure that everybody knows that that we're playing football up here. That use my name in some way to tell the story of the coaches that we have attracted, because I think that was maybe the most important stuff, that some of the coaches that I knew were willing to come along, and I think that's probably that's probably the only way I can really see that it has helped us so far. I like to think that was my winning personality and not the job that I'm doing on TV that got those coaches on board.
Fair enough. And so, yeah, and people that are listening, they may not know, but you and I will be going head to head this year. We're both in the same division. Now, the gap between Division 1 and the National League is quite big. Why do you think that is within the Danish football world? And what does it take for a team to decide to make that step finally? You know what I mean? To move from the first division. We have an exciting year this year with 11 teams, so we're going to have some great competition in first division.
Definitely.
But what do you think is that factor? Is it money? Is it domestic talent? Because some would say both, some would say one or the other. You know what I mean?
Now, it hurts me to say this, but I'm kind of being one of the old guys in the league now, because I started, as I said, in '94, and back then the same thing happened. What is going on right now in Denmark? The exact same thing happened in Norway. There was a few good teams. A lot of the players went to those teams, and that kind of completely depleted the other teams. And Norway ended up having 2 teams in the National League that would play each other twice, and the winner would get to play Champions League. So that's what it was called back then. And the winner both teams was really good. They would have 3 American players. I remember one of them having a guy that played fullback in the NFL. So they had a lot of money. They had really good talent. They had 50 players, both of them. And they really just played 2 games to see who would go to play this Champions League tournament. And they did pretty well in those tournaments as well. And the problem is that we're kind of going in that direction in Denmark as well now, here 20 years later. We are having a few teams that, well, it used to be 6 teams that really had the benefit of playing in the National League. It's easier to get sponsors. If you can tell a sponsor, we play in the highest league. With the national team, and the national teams brought a ton of good stuff with them, but it also got players to know each other, and it also got players to be aware of the gap between coaching in one place and another place. So if you are a serious player, we suddenly have all saw some of these players, if they weren't with a team where they thought the coaching was good enough, they went to a few teams that had all the coaches and had good players already. And that's why we see suddenly of all the towers have 70 players on their roster, and other Copenhagen teams can barely put up 20 players. And then also, there's a lot of money involved with this. These teams get big sponsors. We see a few teams have professional coaches that are full-time coaches. These guys, they are working their ass off to keep that job, and I don't blame them. But that also means that you might look to recruit from other teams, which is completely legal. There's nothing wrong with that. Just that we are completely destroying the sport in the long run if we keep doing it. So I think that's why. And unfortunately, we saw one extra team fall from the National League, the Aarhus Tigers, because when you only have 5 teams, there's always somebody who's going to be the bottom team, and you don't. If you are really serious about your sport, you don't want to be in that bottom team. No. And I think that's why we saw some of the players from Aarhus move to other teams. Then suddenly Aarhus falls out of the National League. And I wonder who's next, if it's only going to be 3 teams next year, because some other team is going to fall out of that top. But to answer your second question, what does it take? I think it really takes a good culture. I think it takes a strong foundation of local players. I don't think that if you are a first division team that want to move up, you can have players come from all other teams, because they might come to you, but they might leave again. You need a strong group of people that really put some pride in the team that they're part of, and you need in that group to hit on some talent. And I think that the Oaks actually showed us a couple of years back that you need at the very least 35 players to play in the National League, because it's going to be really, really tough to go up against the Towers. They're ranked 8th in Europe or something like that. Yeah. It's pretty tough to go from the first division to play them. And the other teams are not bad either. The Gold Diggers are obviously really good. The Razorbacks and Aalborg as well. So I think to sum it up, you need a really strong culture, and you need a lot of guys, and you obviously need money as well. You need a couple of coaches that are being paid enough so they can invest the time. And you might even need a few import players, not just to score touchdowns and make tackles, but have the guys believe in it, have those extra position coaches, and have some guys that your players can look up to, how it's done, how it is to be a professional. Because if you don't treat it as a professional, I don't think you're going to get there. You're not going to make it in the National League if you don't have a professional angle at team sports.
That's true, and I think it's okay for a team to be like, listen, we're happy with being in the first division, and not aspiring for that. That's fine. Another thing, going off what you said, is with the sport kind of starting to cannibalize itself with guys moving around. I mean, I've been kind of just thinking on my own, like, how do you do that? I mean, in Canada, for example, at the youth level, they have boundaries, and sort of you if you live in an area, you will play for this team. And I mean, there's exceptions, if there's always exceptions. I don't know if that's the answer, but another example, for the senior, there's in Finland, they have like a farm team system. So there's agreements with, let's say, the Maple League teams with the first division. So then guys can still be a member of their home club, get to play at a high level. And then also some guys get to come down and develop. I don't know if that's the answer either, but there are things that can be done to sort of get some more parity within the league. And I think that's like the next step, not just in Denmark, but I think anywhere to come up with some like solid plans to make something like that happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hate the idea that we have to come up with rules to make this work. I think that obviously that maybe those can be effective. I really think that we need to start off with making sure, and I know that DAF is trying to do this, but making sure that we get good education for all the coaches, so that you don't feel like, oh, the coaches over there are way better than the coach I have. That if all the coaches, if you kind of equal out the playing ground, so you can still get good coaching, because I don't really think that nobody want to be driving 30 miles to practice. It would be way easier for everybody if it's the 2 streets over that you have to go to practice. So we really have to make sure that the coaching gets better, and then again, I really have to. It has something to do with culture. It has to be a culture that the players are a part of the definition. What is the culture at our team? It can be it can be difficult because there are also, I know, European sport and especially Danish sport. We have you know this, that there's a drinking culture in where people get a lot more drunk in Northern Europe than they do a lot of the other places, and and a lot of the teams is just about being buddies and having beers together. Oh yeah, by the way, we play a few games, and there will always be somebody who has bigger dreams than just having fun and going out banging their heads together twice a week and then play a game once in a while. There will be somebody that's like, this is fun. I want to invest all my time into this, and I don't want to. It would be sad if those guys can't change team, if they are really somewhere out in the middle of nowhere and the team that they're on is just like, we don't want to go anywhere. We want to play in the whatever Bush League, second division, and just have some fun. And we really don't want to practice much either. We just want to have some fun and play some football once in a while. I think those players, that they should be allowed to move. But I definitely agree with you that right now we are going down a path that is not a good thing for Danish American football. And I'm actually starting to think that maybe the easiest way to get out of it is not moving anybody up, but saying to the 4 National League teams, you're moving down. So we just make it a 15-team National League. Obviously, that would be tough on some teams, most teams, but maybe that's what we have to do. And hopefully, some of those teams, some of those players on the National League teams, they would kind of naturally say, hey, you know what? Why am I standing on the sideline out here when I could play for one of these teams? Because really, I think those guys that have those ambitions, they also want to be on the field.
Yeah, that's totally true. And you know, it's tough to criticize because like I said, like there's but something does need to happen, and I don't know what that is though, so I'm not gonna, you know,
No.
but you're right, it's you want to see the sport grow, and I think it's not an overnight answer either. Like developing coaches and youth and everything, it takes time. So there has to be like the plan needs to be over a stretch of time, and you can't, if things get rough, you can't abandon whatever the plan may be. You know what I'm saying? And I think it starts with the youth, and that's only gotten better from what I've over the years in Europe. Like it's with social media, there's more guys getting opportunities and to go to play in the States and things like that. So I think it's on the right track. It's just some more guidance is needed, and you know it can't get worse. That's the thing. We can only try to make it better, I guess. But yeah, I'm excited for this season and to go head to head with you and the other teams. You know, and
it's going to get really exciting. I like the tournament we have this year. Obviously, 6 games is not a whole lot, but then we get a kind of a bigger playoff. And I think for most guys right now, it's just getting out there and play some games since we didn't get to play a whole lot last year. This is going to be exciting for everyone.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this about me, but my grandmother is actually originally from Denmark. So
get out of here, Aaron.
Yeah, yeah, she's from Middelfart, and
okay.
Yeah, I've started some Danish lessons. So jeg træner 3 gange ugen. So it's coming, you know.
Okay. Okay. And you went to Germany before you were here? Was that Germany was your first time in Europe?
Yeah, so Germany coaching. Yeah, I did U19 program and positional coach on the senior, and then I was in Finland after that with a women's team and coaching on the Maple League men's team there in Kuopio. And then I was in Romania last year, but COVID shut down our season, and I got stuck there.
When we played
the
I can't even remember what they call it, but the Champions League, I can't remember what they call it now with the towers. We went to play the Helsinki Roosters, and one thing that really hit me, the biggest difference, obviously this team was really good, but from Finland to Denmark, and also when we went to Sweden to play, we played the Karlstad Crusaders. We played up there. Is how many people there is helping out around the team. How many volunteer people, they just have to show up on a game day. When we played the Roosters, I think they must have had like 30 grown-ups that just showed up to help out, to make sure that everything was in place. And I don't know a whole lot of teams in Denmark that can have 30 people to show up to, I don't know, they were painting the field, they were selling beers and sodas, they were just helping, everything was done. These players didn't have to do anything on game day. And I think that, you know, if you have a support system of 30 players, 30 volunteers, I guess it's also easier to get local sponsors and stuff like that. It seems like these teams, they just have that the sport is also different well, at the very least in Finland and in Sweden. Also remember when we played with the senior national team in Italy, in Milano, there were so many helpers around, and the sponsors they were telling they were getting. It seems like that a lot of other places in Europe, amateur sport is being taken more seriously. There is a bit of commitment to it from the local society around these teams than there is in Denmark. So maybe this is just a Danish problem right now, because it seems like it's a little bit different other places.
Yeah, I mean, in Germany, we were a third division team, and at the senior level, and they had around 30 people helping out. 1,500 people would come to the game, anywhere from 800,
Okay.
and this is third division in a town of 30,000, and I was absolutely blown away by that. I think in general, like, the support in Europe is way more than even in Canada. We have senior leagues in Canada, but our professional system is not like here. There's no relegation, so only our moms and girlfriends come to those games when I play.
Okay.
Right? No one really cares. But I think it's still good. But hopefully, that's a future that we could see in Denmark too, with more people helping out. And I think the volunteers don't get thanked enough either sometimes for what they do on game day.
No, definitely.
But I always like to finish these off with a question, a football question. So are you an offensive or defensive guy? First of all, what are you?
Actually, right now we are so lucky. Well, I am a defensive guy, but we are so lucky that we have both an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. So to kind of stress the importance of special teams to the players, I, as a head coach, is responsible for the special teams to make sure that doesn't get overlooked. We have a lot of emphasis on special teams with the Knights, and I also think from the 4 games that we played last year, at least 3 of them was decided on special teams. So I think hopefully that point got through to the players that it's an important part of the game.
Yeah, I agree. Especially because me coming from Canadian football, we're a 3-down system, so special teams is like actually a third of the game. But okay, so if everything, offense, defense, special teams, if everything is aligned the way you want it to be, what is your favorite play to see executed out there by your team? Everything's lined up the way you want it. You know what I mean?
I think that that in the Danish league, I don't think I'm throwing dirt on anybody here, but obviously the quarterback is the most difficult position to play in football. I think that that obviously the quarterback level of play in Denmark has gone way higher than anybody could have expected 10 years ago. They're better than ever. But I still think that it's so difficult to play quarterback that I think you can get away with some things in Denmark and in Europe that you wouldn't be able to get away if we were coaching college football, for example, or even high school football in the States, just because we don't get as many reps. So we like to in Kronborg to blitz a lot, and we are a big fan of a 6-man blitz even. We did that when I was a player. We played the defense we played when I played was a 3-3 stack defense. We're playing that again now when I'm the head coach. And I really think that usually if you would do something like that, 6 or even a 7-man blitz in college football, it would be, most people would say that's a huge risk to run. But I think with quarterbacks who are not 6 feet tall in the European leagues, and especially in Denmark, who can really look over the line as easy. And when you have so much coming at them, there's only a few plays that are available to a European quarterback. And some of those plays are pretty difficult to pass. You might have some hot read where a lot of guys, they would like to, well, then we just throw a slant. Well, slant can be pretty difficult if there's a wall of guys coming towards you. Then a lot of guys would say, well, we just throw it deep. Then we know we got a one-on-one. In my experience, that pass when you throw it down the sideline and you got 6 men coming at you, it's usually not the prettiest pass in the world. There's a bigger chance than usual that you can get a pick from that cornerback. And if you already coached your cornerback to say, you know what, you just line up a little bit deeper, it's either going to be something short where he tries to get the ball out of his hands as quick as possible, or he's trying to throw it over your head. I guarantee it's going to be one of those 2 routes. And if it's short, you just make the safe tackle. They get 8 yards, fine by me. We live to play the next play. But just don't get burned deep on this play. I really think that when I look back at when I played and also last year, this is something we have had great success with. Just once in a while, throw that in there. You can tell that to your quarterback. It's coming sooner or later.
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys, I wouldn't say that they panic. There's a lot of Danish guys that know where they're supposed to go with the ball. But, it's difficult to throw a precise ball 20 yards downfield when you can't step into it.
And you're seeing like this and I agree. I think, that's great. And when I saw you guys play earlier this year, you mentioned the 3-3 stack and thanks for giving me that headache to think about, because that's a difficult
also
defense.
Think actually the opposite thing can be great too. For a long time, the Razorbacks, they had a very, very simple strategy, which the more I think of it, was completely genius. They would on I guess like 80% of all plays, they would just play cover 4. They had really good defensive line guys that could really get some pressure on the quarterback. And I spoke to one of the American coaches, Kenneth Sewell, when he still played, and he said, you know what? There's not a lot of Danish quarterbacks that can work the ball down the field, getting 5 yards a pop. They might get it a few times, but they're not going to get 80 yards that way. So if we take away the big play, good luck just driving it slowly down on us. There's not a lot of European quarterbacks that can do that. So if we take away the deep shot and we know we can get pressure with 4, they're in for a tough game. And I don't know how the Razorbacks back in the days, they would used to score on big plays constantly. So when you were playing the Razorbacks, they are going to put up 30 points. There's no way you can keep this team with under 30 points. And on the other hand, you had to work your way down there really slow. It would take 9, 10 plays to score on them. And not a lot of guys can do it. Not a lot of guys had the patience to do it. So I thought that the opposite strategy can be really good as well at this level.
That's true, and it's hard to nickel and dime your way, especially in it's easier to run the ball. If I'm totally frank, if I could run the ball the whole game, that's what I'd be doing.
I really it's really a surprise to me. I understand why all these guys, they watch NFL, they watch college football, and everybody want to do spread right now. I'm surprised we don't have a wing T team right now. I played in 2 Mermaid Bowls. The first Mermaid Bowl I played in, we played the veer triple option, and we would throw the ball maybe 15 times a game. And the next year we played the double wing T, and we had 250 yards rushing average that year. So I'm really surprised with the way the league is, and that we don't have at least just one team that has just completely committed to the run. Because this is not the NFL, and this is not college football. There's a lot of, I talk to a lot of coaches to say, well, you can't do that anymore. I'm like, bullshit. Don't tell me that. If I have 5 guys that can really block, give me a fullback that can really run the ball, and then one speed guy that can get around the corner, I guarantee if we had that in Kronborg, we would be playing the wing T, because that is so tough to defend. You just have to be patient as a coach, because it comes down to angles. When you play the wing T or even the triple option, everybody have great angles, and you have one more guy than those guys. If your quarterback can run, you're going to outnumber those guys. It's really a numbers game, it surprised me that we don't see more teams do it. Did the French national team do it? They run wing T.
Yeah.
So don't tell me it can't be done, that people are too good in Europe. That's bullshit.
Yeah, and triple option is my favorite type of offense. Now, that's not a hint that's what we'll be doing at all. We're not. I'll tell you that straight up. But I love watching old Georgia Tech, and what's it called? Navy. That's my favorite college football to
Yeah.
watch. But yeah, it's something about it because it's like you said, everyone's accounted for. It's assignment football, great angles. Yeah, it's when done right, it looks really really nice. You know?
And yeah, you know, back when we played the triple option, you know, a lot of guys, they get a quarterback when they get a import player over here, and maybe they get an offensive line. But I remember that the first American we got over when I played, it was a fullback. It was a huge guy that played fullback. And when we played that triple option, the teams we played, they had to stack the box. They had to respect that because even if the linebacker filled the gap, this dude would get free yards at the very least. And then we had a really fast guy to go outside, and our quarterback would run with the ball as well. It was so tough for teams to stop.
Yeah, But anyway, I look forward to seeing you out there across the field, my guy. And yeah, man, you know, good luck this season, and you know, hopefully we see each other soon, and things keep progressing as far as COVID, you know, in the right way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man. Take care and enjoy your weekend.
I will.